tracking 100-mile-per-hour Hurricane Alex all night long. Now, the severe weather kicked off early today. A tornado left minor damage in San Pedro outside Brownsville early this morning, and at least 5 tornadoes have been reported thus far. Well, Chris is back now to talk about the tornado threat and to show us where this massive hurricane is right now.
Well, right now it is inching its way onshore here. It hasn't officially made landfall just yet, but you can see the eye right in here. And this is now a Category 2 hurricane that we are looking at here with maximum sustained winds around 100 miles an hour, and this storm is moving to the west at 12 miles an hour. So what we're going to notice here as we look at the track, now we know where it's making landfall. I mean, that's pretty obvious now. It's so close, and we're looking for it to happen here any time now, coming up pretty soon. But the projected path, what we're looking at here is the fact that once it does start to move onshore, once it starts to go from the water onto land, this is when we're going to see things really start to decrease as far as the intensity of this storm will decrease. Now you can see the winds by tomorrow afternoon should be back down around 35 miles an hour sustained winds, but be well inland. That being said, the effects are going to be felt. There'll be widespread effects here. Now what we're looking at here, this is the radar. This is where we're seeing the rain right now. You can really see the circulation right here. And what this is, this red outlined area, this is a tornado watch. It is possible we could see some more isolated tornadoes firing up here throughout parts of Texas, especially the southern portion here. And we can see right here through tonight, we do have that threat for tornadoes. And this does even include Houston all the way down to Brownsville. And right now, Grant Stinchfield is live in South Padre Island, Texas. And he's going to tell us what's happening right now. Grant?
Yeah, hi, Chris. One of those feeder bands is moving through, and when that happens, the winds pick up. The few tourists remaining here at the La Quinta on South Padre Island basically hanging out to just watch the storm roll in. One of the big concerns out here is, of course, the storm surge. We've been talking about it all afternoon. Anybody who knows South Padre Island knows this is a very low-lying area, and they will often deal with flooding on this island. It's already started to happen here as the Gulf of Mexico inches its way closer and closer to some of the hotels on the beaches here. We drove around this island earlier. We did see some minor street flooding. There were some intersections that were basically unpassable there as cars trying to make their way throughout the island. One of the big problems is people on the island are basically being urged to stay on this island. They have shut the causeway down on and off, trying to get in and off of the island. So if you're here, you're basically stuck here at this point just because of the high winds that move through. They don't want any cars up there. So we're keeping an eye on things out here. Chris and Alex, let's send it back to you.
All right. Also, Grant, what about power outages? We've heard a lot of power outages there.
Yeah, we're seeing sporadic power outages. Here at the hotel, we do have power. We've seen it flicker a couple of times, but as we were driving around, there were clearly patches of the island that is out of power. And one spot on the main drag there, a power line was across the road. Of course, they had emergency personnel blocking that until they could get workers out to put the line back up. But with the winds blowing like they are, we had one gust upwards of 50 miles an hour here. With the winds blowing that high, you're going to have problems with trees and branches knocking over. When that happens, of course, the power lines come down.
All right, live in South Padre Island, Texas, Grant Stinchfield, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
All right, and from Grant, we go now to the National Hurricane Center, and of course, they are tracking every move that this hurricane makes.
And you know their headquarters in Miami, Florida has to be another busy spot tonight, and we're joined live now by Chief Hurricane Forecaster James Franklin.
Good evening to you, James. So, James, what's the timeline, do you think? When will it come ashore?
It's moving maybe a little bit south of due west right now, and the coastline kind of slopes away from it a little bit. So if that continues, it maybe might be 3 or 4 hours, but we're really just a few hours away from landfall.
And we talk a little bit about, for people who are not familiar with the term landfall and what exactly you're looking at, because if you look right at the satellite behind you, I mean, it looks like the storm is coming on shore. So what is the actual criteria you look at to actually classify it as it has made landfall?
We're looking for the center of the eye crossing the coastline, so that would be defined as a landfall time. But yes, the hurricane force winds are now already on shore, the coast of northeastern Mexico. Of course, the effects have been going on for many, many hours, but that point of landfall, we're looking for the center of the eye crossing the coast.
And, you know, James, it seems like it's undergoing some rapid intensification, but the good news is that there's not a lot of time left, right? What do you think it'll really peak to before that center gets to land?
You know, it's very interesting. The pressure has been falling fairly dramatically, 3 millibars an hour or thereabouts, but we've seen very little increase in the wind, and that's a little bit puzzling, but we have an aircraft in there. They've been flying back and forth, and the winds have been coming up, but only very slowly. So, yes, the pressure's falling rapidly. The wind's only increasing slowly. I wouldn't expect much more increase in the winds in the next 2 to 3 hours that it has over water.
And James, we talked a little bit about, we've been watching the satellite images all day long. I'm sure our viewers have too. Will you kind of give us an idea of what you were looking at, what we were seeing while we were watching that satellite develop and really turn into a tightly spun storm?
Well, you saw the eye become much better defined and clearing out, and that means that there's a lot of downward motion in the eye, warming the eye. That tends to lower the pressure, so you see the pressure fall when that eye clears out. The puzzling thing, as I said, is that it doesn't seem to be translating into the winds just yet. Certainly not at the surface, maybe aloft.
All right, James, one quick question. Do you think this will portend a very active season?
You know, you can never predict a season on the basis of one storm, but there is one thing to be a little concerned about, and that is that we had Alex form out of a tropical wave, and you don't normally see developments out of a tropical wave this early in the season. That's something that we generally see once we get into August.
All right. James Franklin, thank you so much. Of course, we'll touch base with you again next hour. We appreciate your time tonight.
And as we continue to track Alex, remember the Weather Channel is the hurricane authority.
Count on us for in-depth analysis, tracking the latest developments, the latest watches and warnings, and coverage 24/7 as always at your fingertips at weather.com.